Today we're going back to the 80s, baby. I love anything 80s, and we got some 80s stuff for you. We're going to get pointlessly nostalgic about it, so I hope you join me for this one. If you do, make sure you're clicking subscribe below. You want to be notified about these. If you ring that bell, whatever you're doing, like you could be at the doctor, you're like, the doctor's like, I have some bad news, and you'll be like, ding, and you'll be like, sorry, doctor, I got a new video to watch. So please make sure to subscribe, notification bell, all that other stuff, and let's go. Let's learn about some 80s candy. Gatorgum. People talk about this one a lot. I feel like this may have been in the 80s, but I remember it more from the 90s. This had that, it was like if you took Gatorade and you reduced it down to gum, it had like Gatorade flavor, but times like 20, which is important because, you know, chewing gum, like we've all had Fruit Stripes. It's delicious for 3 chews. You ump, 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 and then you're like, hey, there's no more flavor. That's what happens with this stuff too. So they have to add that extra thirst quenching flavor. And even I remember the commercials. They kind of hinted that if you were out having you don't need water, and if no Gatorade's with you, you just pull this sweaty pack of gum out of your pocket and you'll be thirst quenched. I don't know that it helped quench your thirst. I don't believe that. Mr. Bones, assorted puzzle candy. He's so real. I remember this. We got a picture here. This was a plastic coffin. So you'd be like, Mom, can I get a plastic coffin? And she'd be like, yeah, buy your plastic coffin. This is what the 80s were like. And then you'd get him and you could put them together. It was like a little jigsaw puzzle. And then you could eat them. He was made out of like sweet tarts. Mr. Bones, chiclets, tiny sized chiclets. I remember these so well. We were we were like at the drugstore, I think, and I got some tiny sized chiclets. And they would be a package, not much bigger, probably a little bit smaller in size than like a cell phone. And it was just a little envelope. Little tiny gum, and you'd take them and you'd put them in your mouth, and you know they'd all make one big piece of gum. I don't know if they still make this. I know they make chiclets, but I don't know if they still make these tiny size ones, but these tasted great. I remember these. I very specifically remember we went to a baseball game and I was sitting next to another friend of mine, and he asked if he could have some, and I went to like give him a little, and like half the bag pulled out. It was a and he got this mountain. And he's like, thanks. And I was like, oh. And then he didn't do this and just chew it. He sat there and daintily, one by one, so that it stretched out, this moment of me looking at him, knowing he has more of my tiny sized chiclets than I get. Oh, man, I don't remember that kid's name, but I remember the sadness of that day. Chiclets, tiny size. I don't know if these are still around. I know there's a lot of candies from the old days that are still around if you go to like Cracker Barrel, and some of them are still around at like your local, you know, Walgreens if you look up and down the candy aisle. It's just I don't shop for candy much, so I forget about it. I didn't know Rolo was still around. Whatchamacallit. These things are all still there. So these. Okay. I remember these. So they're from Necco Candy House. Now, I've seen Necco does those Necco wafers too. I've seen those. Not to be confused with Nilla wafers, which are totally different. Candy buttons, though. I remember these. You'd get a sheet of paper. You had to I'd try to get these little tiny buttons of candy off there. And you'd start out doing it like this. You'd pick them up, but then you'd want more. Say, and just try to get them to pop off into your mouth. You usually end up eating a significant amount of paper. You'd be pulling out little pieces of pulp. But there you go, Candy House candy buttons. I remember those. Razzles. I don't know if these are still around. These were so cool. These kind of blew me away because they were a candy and then they turned into a gum. And that, like, to me, there was something like you put it in, you're like, candy. It's just candy. It's just what? And it was double thick. Look, this was before people put no K at the end. They're like 2 C's, but these were double thick. They should have had the 2 C's. Razzles. They were good. Razzles, not Razzies. They were Razzles. I think Razzies is another candy, though. Or it's an award they give to bad actors. Not people that do bad things. Like, you know, you hear in the news, they'll be like, a bad actor graffitied the platform at the... But no, like somebody that, you know, put in a bad performance, and the Hasty Puddings Club of Harvard is just like, oh, we're going to razz them with our Razzie. Jolly Ranchers. I remember these. A Jolly Rancher, that's like a guy who's got a farm. He's super happy about it. He's like, I'm just farming away. I remember when these came out, you could get them. They didn't look like this, though. I could not find a picture of the package. I remember they were not. They were a little bigger. I feel they were a little bigger and maybe even skinnier, and they were much more of a clear rectangle shape. It was, the shape I felt was very well defined. They had them in a bin. You could purchase them at it wasn't even a candy store. It was like a store that sold candy, had like that bulk candy type stuff, but they also had stickers and other stuff. It was called Happiness Is at the Quaker Bridge Mall in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. I used to get those, and I remember the green ones they never had. The green ones and the cinnamon ones were the rare ones. I think they were the originals. I think like that's like how it started, and they were the rare ones. They were the hardest ones to find, and man, delicious. Jolly Ranchers. Here's one. I don't know if this is around anymore. Score. Look at this. This is one of the many candies they were like, we're going to try to appeal to adults because, candy was all in your face and for kids. So they're like, Score. I mean, just look, the way it's spelled, it looks very foreign. It's got like a crown on it. We don't have kings. It doesn't have like the seal of the presidency. It's got a crown. And it's like, looks like it's for adults. I think it's got toffee in there, and that's very grown up. I don't know if they still make this, but if you look at this picture, you can see that 200 in the corner there. That is the calorie count, and they definitely didn't put that on the front of the package when I was a kid. So this is definitely more recent, probably still around. You go get your Score, but yeah, it was like, it also tried to look like it was healthy. It's obviously not healthy at all, but it's just trying to be classy and for grown-ups. Oh, speaking of which, Alpine White, creamy white, superior, new with superior quality. Nestle's Alpine White with almonds. It works. It's caffeine-free, effective, and safe. Your appetite suppressant candy. It's AIDS. This was a big thing. And then, I remember all the commercials for these. Oh, I'm eating AIDS and I'm losing weight. And then, of course, there was the autoimmune deficiency syndrome. It was different, spelled different. This one kept being like, we got a Y in our name. It's different. They'd even spell it in some of the commercials. They'd be like, with AIDS, AIDS. But, obviously that's bad. You can't, it'd be like, but somehow Corona beer survived that COVID thing. That's why we all started saying COVID instead of Corona. And by the way, now that I said that, I think this becomes like demonetized or something. But regardless, only I think children can't watch this, which is really sad because they need to learn about this. But yeah, like Corona, probably they were like the Corona beer people were like, hey, you guys just start saying that COVID. There's no product called COVID, but we've got beer to sell. Don't be calling this thing Corona. All right, the famous chicken bubble gum. You get chicken shaped bubble gum in a Stay Fresh pouch. Chicken flavored? No, just chicken shaped. Okay. All right. PB Max. I remember this with peanut butter snacks. I remember this. This is kind of like a deeply embedded memory that had almost floated away. The PB Max. I remember ads for this more than I remember actually. I don't remember eating one. I bet I never did. But I remember the ads would be on the back of comic books. PB Max. It was to the max. You got your peanut butter all the way maxed out. Bottle caps. These were good. They kind of had like a fizzing thing, if I remember correctly. You'd put them in your mouth. They kind of fizzed a little bit. And there's like a weird little creepy guy, like Kilroy was here hiding under the bottle cap. What is this? Oh, Chunky. This is like an ad for Chunky. Chunky. This was original Chunky. There's like a coupon there. I don't know what happened in the compression there on that image. But Chunky was a candy bar, and if you were like overweight, if you were an overweight kid, you were eating a Chunky. Oh boy, you were gonna get a Razzie. I'll tell you that. Gold Nugget. I know they still make this. I've seen this at Cracker Barrel. I love this Gold Nugget chewing gum, and they had that little miner on there, and he's like, "I found the chewing gum. I found it. I'm rich." Here we go. This was an era. You had El Bubble, original bubble gum. These were chewing gum. shaped like a cigar, and you would give these out. They have the dragon up there. They have, different logos that look like cigar logos. You would give these out when you had a baby, because you'd give out cigars to the men, and then you'd give out chewing gum to the kids. I guess the ladies got cigars too. I don't know, but I think the kids wanted something. I think the men were all smoking their cigars. Here's El Bubble 2. If you weren't down with the first one, we've got Wild Tiger, El Bronco, and Mad Bull in El Bubble 2. Orange, grape, and strawberry flavor. We had to branch out. And then, of course, the very famous candy cigarettes. I like these. There were two types. There were ones that were bubble gum, and that's what it looks like these are. And those, it was wrapped paper around a very thin candy bubble gum stick that looked like a cigarette. And what I liked was you'd put it up to your lips, and they had to put like flour or something like flour, dextrose or something, powdered sugar, something on it. I'm sure it wasn't flour, but they put something on it to keep it from sticking to that paper when you peeled that paper off. And you could put it up to your lips with the paper on and go, and all that powder would come out and look like smoke. You could do one through your fake cigarette. And then they had the other one, which was just candy sticks, but they were in a box just so it looked like cigarettes. I remember we used to put them in our sleeve, folded up like Schneider on one day at a time. Well, a box is popping up here. Another box popping up here. That means it's time to go. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you had candy cigarettes back in the day, make sure to let me know in the comments. But right now, you got to choose here or here, here or here. It's up to you. I hope you choose one. I hope you like it. And I'll see you next time.